And then he gave me that insight about his anger, and he said, when I read about Moses and all this anger he had and striking the rock twice and killing the Egyptian, wow, God could really use me, but my anger might mess it up, And so that inner preacher was there. So I hope that inner preacher is there for you while we read through these families as well, Adam, Noah, and Abraham. Also, it can give us some sympathy and some understanding of God's struggle, right? In the previous lecture, we talked about driving in upstate New York, and if you were supposed to take exit 52, but it's the last exit before the Tappan Zee Bridge, and then you miss your exit, you ended up in New Jersey, and it will take you 5 hours to get back there, because you'll be lost. And that's human history. That's what we've been doing. We missed our exit. We ended up in, hell, a.k.a. New Jersey. And we started circling around. And we've come back to, with the principle, we've understood, wow, this is what the journey of the Bible means. And I love that. So this may just seem like a lot of historical information, but I love the big questions that it answers. The big questions that it answers that many would struggle with. Why did God wait to send Jesus? Why? When we understand that they are lost in thousands of years of New Jersey roads that don't make any sense, and they don't, by the way. No offense to anyone here, if you're from there. That's a big part of the reason. Also, it can show us how to see our own lives. These family struggles. And really, like we said, resentment and these things are underneath the sin. So underneath the failures, there's something going on. We're going to learn about Ham, for instance, and the shame that he felt toward his father, an embarrassment, shame, right? So let's begin. We covered this last lecture, the history of restoration. We were on our path towards perfection. We fell. And restoration history is a way of building conditions, foundation of faith and substance, through not just anyone, but central figures, up back to the point where we've had enough conditions where we can get back to where we kind of left off and send the Messiah. And that Messiah can become the new and true Adam and Eve. The foundation for the Messiah has those two blocks, remember? Foundation of faith and substance. The central person of the age. In this case, we have Adam up here. And what happens is a separation of good and evil in the two kids happen so that God can claim Abel, Satan can claim Cain, and they can do a rematch. Let's do a rematch, okay. Lucifer and Adam didn't work out so well, but what about Cain and Abel? If Cain can say, you know what, I'm walking out of this historical resentment, accusation, jealousy, lack of love, and overcome those feelings and go over here and unite with Abel anyway, then it would have been a victory. And history would have been restored very quickly. Very quickly. I wonder if Abel failed a little bit too, Did he rub it in that he was so special? Do you think brothers would have done that? What if he says, no, Cain, you're awesome. You're my elder brother. You will always be my elder brother. We just got to trust God that there's something going on here. But if I win, you win, and we're in it together. If he had said that to Cain, would it have been different? Probably. That reminds me of True Father, right? When he was carrying Chung Hwa Pak and their refugee, expedition down from North Korea to South Korea. And there's this moment that always moves me where, he can't go any further, and Father says, I'll pick you up. I'm going to carry you. And he says, no, leave me behind. That's going to sacrifice your mission. How could you sacrifice your greater mission just to carry me? I'm not worth that much. I'm not worth you not fulfilling your mission. You should leave me behind. And Father says, didn't you and I pledge that we would die together? We would go together even if we had to die together? And so he picked him up and carried him. And wow, isn't that a great lesson, especially for people in ministry like me? You know, the fallen nature for people like in ministry is that nothing's as important as my mission work. You know, my mission is too important and too big to stop and take care of some little issue. But Father showed us that something different, I think. You know, something different. That if anybody had the excuse to leave him behind, don't you think Father would be that person? But he didn't do it. He did what was right and loving in that moment. So in the foundation of substance, talk about doing what's right and loving. That's what foundation of substance is all about. Becoming with the Word incarnate, becoming true love. That would have been the foundation of substance laid. So in the Cain and Abel positions, the divine principle kind of lays it out like this. When they separate, God picks out one side to be closer to God. That would have been Adam. That would have been Abel. And in our lives every day, it's mind and body. And also in our lives every day, it's Messiah and fallen man. So, you know, Father talks about this very succinctly, and I love it. Where does God dwell, your mind or your body? Okay, your mind. Your mind is where your original mind and your intuition, and you know what's right, but your body is the one that drags you down. And the purpose so there's a famous story where we're having a lecture full of atheists in a room, like a giant room, like maybe 30 people. And most of them are atheistic. And they're doing lectures all week, and then toward the end, Father comes in and says, okay, let me talk to you. You know, he's got this swag going on, and he's like, which one is God dwelling in, your mind or your body? And they go, well, if there is a God, I guess it would be your mind. Okay, and then Father said, okay, which one is Satan dwelling in? And they said, well, okay, your body. And then he said, very simply, he said this: the purpose of religion is to tamper down and restrain and deny your body so that you can start elevating and strengthening your mind where God dwells. And the story that I was told was all of them, light bulbs went off. They all joined and went on fundraising vans. Like, it was that simple. So let's not get too fooled by, organized religion is the cause of all wars. The purpose of religion is to deny this side and to elevate and inspire this side. That's the purpose. So we're going to go to Noah's family. When Cain and Abel failed, God said, well, I can use Seth, the third child. And 1,600 years after Seth came Noah. And they did another rematch. They did another playthrough of this situation. We had a separation between Shem and Ham. What was the significance of Noah's chorus? You know, Noah's chorus is interesting because Father said many times that the last days would be very much like Noah's time. Just total, intense evil in the world and very intense time. So Noah is building the ark for 120 years. And, you know, this ark floating on the water and the rest of the people getting flooded away, you know. It represents kind of a washing away of the fallen world, a washing away, everything being kind of renewed. And so what you have left is Noah and his family, just kind of similar to Adam and his family. And so that's why there was so much significance in the fact that Noah at some point, as you know the story, was naked. And the Genesis makes a very specific point to say Adam and Eve were not ashamed. And here is Noah. Well, he's passed out and he's naked. He's probably not that ashamed, right? I don't think if you were ashamed, you'd probably take care of that first. But he's falling asleep, and Ham, as you know, felt embarrassment and shame about his father. Now, I like to pause here because I'm thinking, for a long time growing up, I related to Ham. If I saw my dad, I would do the same thing. I'd be like, this is not holy behavior. This is embarrassing. But slow it down. Think about this. Your dad looked like a crazy person for 100 years and was building this ark. Oh, and you're just thinking, gosh, Dad, and you know what? You know who's not mentioned in the Bible, very interestingly? Noah's wife. Not mentioned. Very interesting. And I suspect, this is just me pontificating, that she may not have been the most supportive person. I mean, come on, wives, right? If you quit building the dang boat and just got a second job, we'd have some more money. What's going on? No, honey, you don't understand. God is telling me to build the boat, right? So can you imagine the wife's heart through that? God, oh my God, he's crazy. He's crazy. And can you imagine the kids seeing the dynamic between the husband and the wife? Dad is ridiculous. Oh my God. Actually, dad's job is always to embarrass you, right? That's what they do. But this is on steroids, right? And they're probably absorbing that a little bit from the mom, right? You know how this goes. And so that's really the context. But I'm building this up for you guys to feel the impact here. But it turns out Dad is right. Holy schmoly. The flood actually came. And everyone dies, but we live. Holy schmoly. So basically, if you're the kids, your mind should be freaking blown. I mean, you should be like, I'm never questioning anything you ever say again. I will slowly back away, and I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. We're not worthy. Right? I mean, come on. He's right. And he saves your family. He was right the whole time. So that context, the fact that Ham is still going, look at dad naked, that's a problem. Something's wrong here. He should be a rock star in your mind. He should be like, holy smokes, I'm never questioning him. I'm going to have faith in my dad. He saved my life. So there's something wrong. So it took me many years to process this story because for a long time I'm like, yeah, Ham did the right thing. I would do that. But no, not true. If my dad, saved my family after 100 years of ridicule, there should be more respect. So they failed. Ham, actually, we always talk about Cain didn't unite, right? But actually, in this case, Ham didn't even have faith. So even Ham just kind of fell off the wheel there. And so Satan kind of invaded Ham's nature, and because Satan took Ham, God took Shem. So Shem didn't really display any initial initiative in the wrongdoing. So God took Shem, and it was from Shem's family line that we got Abraham. So here we go. Later, here we got to keep playing this out. That was a fail. We need a new central family. We need a new Adam. We're still looking for a foundation of faith and substance to bring in the Messiah. Abraham was given this command. I need you to make an offering of the cow, the heifer, the sheep, and the bird. And we kind of know this story, right? He cuts up the heifer. He cuts up the sheep, and he gets tired. He says, "No, okay, I don't need to do the birds, do the dove." And that whole offering was taken by Satan. And it sounds so, wow, that really? That, like, if you get most answers correctly, don't you get an A minus, you know? Come on, man. This was way more work than this. But it was very symbolic. It was very symbolic, and it really, I mean, if you think about it, just do not eat the fruit. Simple commands, very little, and it only takes a little mistake to not follow the command. So we're trying to restore Adam's faithlessness, and he needs to have total, complete faith. Partial 2/3 doesn't work. Doesn't that make sense? Fidelity and merit. You know, I saw this guy said, hey, 90% of music notes, if you get 90% of them right and only 10% of your musical notes are off, you're going to sound like crap. You know, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, da da da, happy birthday to you. Oh, I'm a great singer. I got 90% right. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. Real love needs 100%. 100%. 100% fidelity between man and wife. 100% commitment between parents and children. So because Abraham was like the third good guy that God had encountered, you know, we had Abel, we had Noah, then we have Abraham. He's kind of like the third good guy. So that opened a way for God to be able to extend the mission of Abraham. Okay, you're not totally a bad guy. And also because of we didn't even talk about the sort of consequential condition God had Abraham do. You know this story, right? Isaac. Okay, if you can't do the heifer, then you got a new mission now. I want you to offer your son. And Abraham and Isaac dutifully, amazingly, they basically go through it all the way to the point where God says, no, I can see your heart, you're willing, you're faithful. So there's a ram over there behind the bushes, go do the ram instead. But incredible that Isaac and Abraham had that kind of connection. So it was through Isaac that we could start again. And the divine principle has almost humorously long language to describe this. It's called a vertical extension of horizontal indemnity conditions. You know, something very long. We don't want to put that on the screen because it's so long and make me dizzy. But that's what it is. It's an extension. Okay, Abraham, you did enough to bring your mission down to Isaac. And Isaac's victory of foundation of faith was made. And now Isaac can have his sons play out the task of uniting for the foundation of substance. So this was a foundation of faith. And do you know who his sons are? Jacob and Esau. Well, my slides look out of order. So this is an amazing story. You know, Jacob tricked Esau into selling his birthright. Do you know what the exchange was? They made a little deal. Bowl of lentils. So Esau was out, you know, and he came back after days and days of work, and he was so hungry, I'm going to die, you know. And Jacob was like, well, I have some lentils here. And he's like, give me those lentils, you know. And he said, well, give me the birthright that Dad promised you, and I'll give you some lentils. Man, what a high bargain, right? What a tough negotiator. Tough negotiator. And Esau said, fine, do it. And they, you know, later on, Jacob took him up on that offer. The years had passed. Maybe Esau even forgot about all that. I mean, I would. It's like, yeah, whatever. But what's kind of fascinating is the role of the parents. You know, Rebekah the mother helped Jacob get the birthright. So this might sound kind of devious or conniving, but actually Rebekah was being guided by God to play out this role. Because remember, Cain didn't unite with Abel. We need another reversal. We need another playthrough where the where the older brother goes under and separates out and then goes under the younger and God's representative. So the story is pretty humorous, right? Because Esau was a very hairy person. And so even though Isaac was blind, Jacob was like, no, he's going to know it's not me. If he grabs a hold of my hand or anything, he'll know it's not me and I'll be caught lying, So Rebekah and Jacob devise a plan for him to wear animal fur and Esau must have been one hairy guy. It's like you feel a sheep and you're like, oh, that's my son Esau. Must have smelled bad and everything. Man, hairy dude. I'm sure he was a hard-working, good guy though. So he dresses up in animal fur and he tricks his blind father and he gets the birthright. And Esau is not too happy about this. He's fuming about this. And what happens on the emotional, internal level right at that moment? All of the resentment from Cain, all of that murderous anger and resentment from Cain comes rushing through history back and right into Esau's heart. It has to, because that's what needs to be there for this role to be played out successfully. So Esau was filled with incredible emotion that he probably didn't even know how volcanic he could actually be. And he wanted to kill Jacob. So Jacob went out to his uncle Laban, spent 21 years. Finally, he came back. He had all this wealth that he had accumulated. And the night before he gets back, he's wrestling with the angel. And that's an amazing story. He's wrestling with an angel. So, when we talk about the fall, right, some people are just blown away. I don't know about Eve and the angel. Well, Jacob and the angel happened, So there's got to be some sensory that is possible. And then, he was victorious. And the angel eventually said, you wrestled with God tonight. And he finally comes back to Esau. And in an incredible moment, he offers everything that he had accumulated back to his brother Esau. And he bows to him, and they're in tears, and they unite. What's amazing is this is the first time in history that we had this kind of unity, this kind of victory for God. First time. Jacob and Esau, very important. I feel like a lot of credit always goes to Jacob. Wow, it's both brothers. It's both brothers. So this really was one of the greatest moments in human history. And that's why Jacob, well, let me ask you this. Why is Israel God's chosen people in the Bible? It's an interesting question. Why is the Jewish people God's people? What happened?
Because Jacob was called Israel.
There you go. Because of Jacob and Esau's victory, what happened right after was God gave Jacob the new name, Israel. And from then on, we always talk about the Israelites. How many times do we say the word the Israelites? It comes from Jacob's victory. That's how important this was. God's nation, God's people could come from their unity. That's why Israel was the chosen nation. And so this is why the Messiah, this is why Jesus was Jewish. This is why. This is why the Messiah could come. So, this is really amazing because in our lives of faith, we often talk about the foundation of faith, right? Like go to church every Sunday or read Hundake. Those are not the foundation of substance. That's not, the foundation of substance is a lifelong and a very internal struggle of becoming a new person, a good person. And I often find that in our church, this becomes a little bit of a source of a little confusion. Yeah. Like, I feel like the younger generation has a hard time understanding the older. Because it's like, well, why are you talking about all this ideal stuff when you're not ideal? But I understand it to mean that the early pioneers in our church said, you know what? We're not worthy. We're pretty dumpy people. But we can do this. We can just believe and attend. And then it really is our job as the younger generation to fill it out and bring it here. But without accusatory, blaming energy for people that we can see in our movement that maybe don't look so ideal. But it is our job to become internally transformed. I see it as this. It's a relay race. If anything, Abraham's story can teach us that it's a relay race. One generation can bring it down the field a little ways, and the next, instead of accusing this people, you didn't finish, you didn't get to the goal, take the baton and run the relay race. Go down the field. So I often find that, sometimes the older generation might look at the younger and say, man, they didn't do nearly as much conditions as us, And then sometimes the younger might look at the older and say, man, these people are the furthest from ideal I've ever seen, or whatever they're thinking in their adolescence. Right. But I see it as a relay race. I see it as the second gen's job, the young unificationist job. It's not just have faith, not just show up to church. And sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes I think our parents would be so happy if our kids would just go to church every Sunday. At least there's. But our mission is bigger. Our mission is quite big, much bigger. And when I had this kind of insight, I felt a lot more compassion for all sides of our movement. All sides of our movement. We have to want to become substantial people without judging anyone. Father says you shouldn't judge anyone because you don't know their historical burden. Remember the evil spirit diagram I cooked up for you? You don't know what somebody's going through. You just don't know. And so we should never judge because we don't know the story. So why didn't the Messiah come? That's a very good question, right? Okay, there was unity. Okay, they made a foundation. And the reason is, at this point, God needed more than just a family. He needed more than just a chosen family. Oh, he's got one good family. He can restore everything. Not anymore, because now there's nations of people. Now there's oodles and oodles of people. And one little family can get so easily wiped out. So God wanted to protect the Messiah. God wanted to create the proper foundation for the Messiah to have the best possible chance. And so he wanted to build a nation for God. That's why we needed the chosen people. The Israelites had to become a nation. And that's why the Israelites had to go into Canaan and this whole thing. So I hope to impart that it's not just a collection of moral stories. You might open the Bible and think, I guess there's just moral lessons here, But there's actually reasons for what's going on. There was reasons for Moses to do what he did. There's reasons for Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And so you know what happens to Jacob's son? He has many sons, many. And one of them is the name that I bear, Joseph. It's so funny because for those I'm sure you may know, but Joseph got sold into slavery by his brothers, and then he ends up becoming prime minister of Egypt, right? It's like an incredible comeback. It's the comeback story of all time. There's no greater comeback story. But it was so funny. I met a minister in a breakfast spot one day. We were super long line, and we were just chatting. The guy just, you know what I mean, he just looks like a minister, right? He's just like, he is a pastor. I just know it from a distance. And then we just start talking. And I tell him my story. Yeah, I used to volunteer and play bass at my local church, and now something happened, and I became the pastor. And he's like, that sounds like the story of Joseph. And I said, well, my name is Joseph, actually. I hadn't even told him my name. And he's like, oh, Lord. He said, oh, Lord, the Holy Spirit is moving in here. He was like, oh. I was like, okay, that's a little much. But so my story might be reflective of Joseph's story, right? Maybe. From bass player to pastor. So yeah, when Joseph's in Egypt, he's the prime minister. And it's from there that God is planning to develop this nation for God. He needed a nation. And that's why, sadly, when Joseph dies, the Israelites become enslaved. They become totally in a slavery class. It's a really incredible 400 years. That's hard to fathom, right? That would be like the whole lifespan of American history. Just slavery. So before we go on to any more folks and families and historical figures, which is not always easy for me to keep track of, do you have any comments or corrections or insights, or does your inner preacher have any good lessons for me? Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, please.
I have a question about Ishmael and Isaac.
Yeah.
That's not covered so much, and I don't remember why Ishmael and Hagar were banished, and from that came the line of family that then enslaved Joseph, because he was with the Ishmaelites, right? So what happened there? So the sons of Abraham, Ishmael and Isaac, and then Ishmael is just like banished and whatever. Isaac becomes the one who's an offering, he makes the family of Jacob and that lineage. I don't remember hearing what happened between those brothers.
Ishmael and Isaac.
Yeah. Ishmael was the son of but he was still the son of Abraham.
Right, but then when Sarah shows up with a child, that child, Isaac, takes precedence over the child of the servant.
Like a Cain-Abel, there was a Cain-Abel relationship with Ishmael being in the position of Cain and Isaac being in the position of Abel, because he was born first from Abraham, hypothetically, my opinion. I don't know
but
if
the
it's
story
direct.
is just that he was banished, so like is that
I can elaborate on that section.
Yeah.
I actually taught this in Sunday school.
Nice.
So, Ishmael and Isaac, like, Ishmael, he was the primary son, right, for a while, because Sarah couldn't have a child. And so she said to Abraham, I want you to have a child with my servant. I forget her name. Hagar, there we go, yeah. Ishmael, and she bore Ishmael. And so Ishmael was the primary son to inherit the birthright for his entire childhood, right? And when Ishmael was about 20 years old, then Isaac was born from Sarah, and he was no longer the primary son to inherit.
At 20 years old.
Yeah, he was already a grown-up person, and suddenly this little baby, Isaac, was born. And so, right from the start, there was this really difficult relationship there between Ishmael and Isaac, from the very beginning of when Isaac was born. And there's also a difficult relationship between Sarah, because Sarah actually, I think I heard this one time. Sarah, and I can relate to it, Sarah couldn't embrace Hagar and love her through this difficult situation between Ishmael and Isaac. So it's a really, really difficult situation there between Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael ended up becoming the founder of the Islamic faith, or the patriarch, yep. And Isaac became the patriarch of the Jewish faith. It's an incredibly difficult story there.
But the Muslims actually believe that the son that Abraham took to be sacrificed was actually Ishmael. They don't believe it was Isaac. So there's a whole lot of emotion and
Yeah, your question was, so I don't think he was banished. I think this.
No, Hagar was, something happened when they were doing their laundry. Someone correct me here, but they were doing their laundry and Isaac's head somehow he's submerged in water, or he took on some water, and there was this feeling that maybe Hagar had some little anger there, and maybe Hagar thought that maybe if Isaac did drowned, that her son might get back into power. And so there was some fear around that, around Isaac's safety, which caused them to literally, I think there's a situation with Hagar and Sarah that caused them that Abraham, I know this for sure, Abraham gave Hagar a whole bunch of stuff, like loaded her up like she was like her own person, but off she went, and they went out into their own wilderness and then created what they created.
I don't think she was banished. I think it was more just there's this difficult situation between Isaac and Ishmael. Abraham is going to give the birthright to Isaac, right? How do you deal with that situation? You know that's going to be difficult for Ishmael. And so, like David said, like as I understand it, like he gave Hagar and Ishmael, some amount of his wealth,
Like an inheritance, but not a birthright.
and sent them off to a different land so that they could be there in a separate place from Isaac and not create conflict there. I don't think it was a banishment at all, but I think it was.
But then those two, they've all been born over the same land now, right? Isn't that? Yeah. So they're still fighting over that area.
They were not supposed to be separated.
Right.
They were supposed to do again another thing
That's right.
within their family.
That's right.
That was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
That's cool, Christian.
Yeah. Actually, I raised my hand because I have, the story of Jacob is also, I told us in Sunday school. Jacob remembers. But the story of Jacob is super profound. Like there's two things that I want to add there. First of all, Esau wanted to kill Jacob. When Jacob inherited the birthright, they made this deal of the lentil soup. But then Esau dismissed that. He was like, "Oh, that was just something a long time ago." Jacob had to trick his father to get a birthright. Esau wanted to kill him. And when his mother sent Jacob off to his uncle, she said to him, and this is one of the points that's made really clear in the Bible, don't marry a Canaanite. And what I understand, and that's all about the lineage, right? Because the Canaanites in those days, they were idol worshippers. They didn't believe in God. And that's what differentiated Abraham's lineage. So they were carrying the baton of people that believed in God. And so Jacob's mother said, don't marry a Canaanite. And so he went to his uncle and then ended up marrying his daughters and preserving the lineage there. That was really interesting to me, is preserving that lineage. That was so important to his mother. His mother knew that, and she helped him trick his father, but it was all about that lineage. The second point is, when Jacob left his uncle to go back to his father's land, he was doing so because he felt called by God to go there. But what he was really doing was he was going back to death. He knew his brother wanted to kill him. And that was still the situation when he left his uncle. And he was afraid of that. Like that's what I got when I read the Bible. Like he was afraid of it. He didn't know how he was going to handle this. He knew that if he went back, his brother was going to try and kill him. And so the story around this is really fascinating. He sent waves of gifts ahead of him. Yeah, he sent because he was convinced his brother was going to kill him regardless, right? And so he sent these people, and his brother was marching, when he heard he was coming, he was marching towards him with his army, set out to kill him. And he encountered like these shepherds along the way there were shepherds of a flock of sheep, and and he met these shepherds, and he was like, "Who are you? And who do these sheep belong to?" And they said, "Oh, my master is Jacob, and I bring these sheep to you as a gift." And these shepherds are like nobody to Esau. He's not going to kill them. He just takes the sheep, right? But those waves of gifts warmed his heart enough to where when they finally met, they were able to embrace. It's an incredible story. It's mind-blowing.
It's a mind-blowing story.
So how come my name is Israel, right? So how come my name is very special?
Why is your name special?
Yeah. I mean, because my mom just it's not my mom actually. My dad named me Israel.
I believe the name. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the name means victory. Vix, you got a big name. You're meant to. Your life is meant to be a victory.
My dad just called me that name. I mean, because I was kind of like, I didn't know that name. It was mostly because my dad just named me Israel, but I know my mom said that it means victory or something. So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
It's a good name. It's a big name, and there's some connotation that's, it's intense. It's an intense name. Because Israel was a chosen nation for God, right? Chosen people. You've heard that phrase, right?
Yeah.
But we get sometimes mixed up what chosen means. Chosen doesn't mean privileged to just get into the front seat of heaven. Chosen means responsible. It didn't matter if the Canaanites were worshiping idols. It didn't. What mattered was, will Jacob and Esau unite? That was God's putting all his energy there. So who was responsible for human history at that moment? Jacob and Esau. So chosen, and your name, Israel, if you're chosen, it means responsible. It in no way means, you're just by default 10 points holier than everyone else. It means you're responsible. It means you got a job to do. So I think that's exhilarating, to be honest. It's like just knowing that gives my life meaning and purpose. I don't know exactly how. Sometimes you have to figure out the specifics. But if you're chosen, it's responsible. So, yeah, your name's a good name. Your name's a good name. I got a biblical name too, I guess, Joseph. So, yeah, and actually this is a good way to wrap up this particular, watching these central families going through what they're going through. They were chosen, but in no way does that give them some kind of easy card in life. It means the weight and responsibility is hanging in the balance on these. So let's fast forward to our faith, and we pray in a name of blessed central families. Does that title start to give you little goosebumps? This starts to, I don't know if that's good goosebumps or shivers down my spine of, whoa. Yes, that's what it means. Central to the progress of human history, chosen. But that means responsible. So it's especially profound. We don't read the Bible to learn moral lessons. We look at these central people to learn from what they did right and wrong, to feel the heart of each character, and so that we might fulfill our time in history. Makes sense? Yeah, this was a great point someone gave to me that I really wanted to share. We don't harp on the so-and-so failed, and then so-and-so failed. And then when we go into Moses, we're going to say that 100 times. So-and-so failed, people failed. We don't harp on those failures to denigrate these people. We don't harp on the fact that Jesus had a primary mission to downgrade Jesus. What we should harp on is look at how many times the chosen people failed. What does that mean? How can we not make the same mistakes? How can we learn from that time period? That's why we focus on it so much. That's why we focus so much on John the Baptist and the faithlessness of people following Moses. Because you guess what? Those people, that's us now.
That's what the people always finish in this family with lessons to be learned from this family.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's good. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a special privilege, is it not? We grasp this, and it makes me feel like, woo, a little bit like I'm buzzing. I'm more alive now.
And I think we wanted to know that because I don't know if the Israelites really understood, their position. I mean, they believed they were chosen, which made them a little arrogant. I come from a Jewish family, and I guess
I think any religious movement that thinks they're the chosen, that can be a temptation. Yeah.
I mean, they know they suffer for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they were chosen, but
Yeah.
somehow they didn't quite understand.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have the perspective of history to
Yeah.
understand the position. So great.
That word responsibility, you know, I actually, I'll admit this, as I was preparing lecture for this trip, I almost had this idea to bring a little bell, ding, and ring it, and I was going to call it the responsibility bell. I'll do it next time. And every time I'm going to say the word responsibility, I'll just hit the bell, because I'm going to get tired of saying this word so much. But it's really true. The responsibility, right? You know, this gets deep, because I hope that the empowerment, you know, with responsibility comes some empowerment. If it's your job, it means God must have given you the power to do your job. That's a biblical concept, actually. God never puts you to a task that you can't fulfill. You can fulfill it. And I find that in our faith, what I've tried to do for my church was give people that feeling of empowerment. You are blessed central family. Some slice of heaven can be built by you. And this should inoculate us from sitting in that recliner or that back seat where we're like, well, my church leader wastes all the money, therefore I can't do anything. Or my church leader doesn't have a good Sunday school. Or, you know, this tendency in us to just, well, the church just makes bad decisions, right? Waiting for the church. Blame the political system, the church leadership system, whatever it else. And it's a tendency to disappear individually and just go, well, I guess it's hopeless because, you know, headquarters would never support a project like that. Guess what? If you're passionate about that project, I think you should consider doing it if you have the right heart and you pray about it. You know? I'm teaching the principle now. I think that's kind of my new gig. I'm going to try it out for a good number of years. Unless I get like a lot of bad reviews on Yelp, then I might go out of business. But you know, this isn't being directed by anybody, you know, this is just my idea to try to do this. So I think you all will have those ideas and you'll all have a vision. We need good comedians, you know, we need like good heavenly comedians. So I'm really hoping Andrew Love goes that way. And we need everything to be restored, everything. So that's our gig as central figures, as central families. The word central should almost scare you. Almost scare you. It sounds like, oh, blessed central, oh, we've got the blessing, oh, we're clean and holy now. Oh boy, guys, there's some fine print in this contract. There's some fine print. Okay, any more ideas, inspirations? Or we can take a quick break, actually, if there's no more ideas or great insights or whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
One more thing.
Oh, yeah, Christian can go first, and then you can do it.
Yeah, you know, that idea of lineage and passing down the lineage is like really, it's a really complex thing, I think, that we all need to think about. What does that really mean? Mm-hmm. You know, being like born from parents doesn't automatically mean that you inherit the lineage. It's much more than that. It's inheriting understanding of God's heart, the truth. I think you've had like some really good diagrams up here about all of what it takes to really inherit that. And Abraham, he had Isaac and Ishmael were his main sons, but he had many other children that, over generations just, became part of the secular world around him, all of the non-believers. And they were born from Abraham, but they did not inherit the lineage, And the path of the children that inherited and carried that lineage through the generations in the Bible was so narrow. And it involved much more than just being born from a certain parent, Even with like Jacob, he had 12 sons. And of those sons, the lineage got passed down through one son, Joseph. But even that wasn't a given. That could have been like, end of the lineage when they sold Joseph into slavery. That could have been it, And so that path is so straight and narrow. And so I think what you said about owning, who we are in our faith, that's really powerful, because I think that's how you really inherit the lineage. And as parents, that's the real challenge, is passing that lineage down to your kids. Such a hard thing to do, All right.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep.
Yeah, that's really important. But I was thinking of also Dr. Young emphasized on that mother and son relationship in our home. And we didn't really understand, I guess, when we started family and, about lineage too. We did not understand very clearly. We knew we were special, we had to raise our children in the faith, and so we were not really connecting, and especially to those children who had the talent, the faith, the obedience, and etc. to guide them well. So, yeah, I really feel mother-son cooperation is so important. It has been in history, and I think it is still to this day. For our own faith.
Okay. I just recently I heard that Noah's family and Ham was freaking out when Noah was created. And Mrs. Young gave a lecture about this point. And according to Father's speech, Father said that Ham, if he's truly united, he should be naked next to Father, sleep with naked.
Wow.
Father is doing, I'm gonna do it together. But anyway, just
leave it up to Father to say something. I'm not gonna say something like that, but he probably he could say it. Oh man, that is really special. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, you can't just say, "Oh, I'm born, therefore that's it." There's an ownership, grasp it. It's an action that you proactively, you have to grasp it, and you have to embed it into your heart. The values, the understanding, the characteristic. That's deep. That's why I'm really stoked when Mother says we need to build, in her words, Hyojung culture, right? When I heard that, I was like, music to my ears. You know what that means? I could be a musician now. Totally, I could do nothing but write songs. But if I'm doing it with the heart of, I'm trying to inch the providence forward, it's totally ordained and supported and blessed by God. God's going to get behind me with that. And I tell you, he really does. I don't even spend time on writing songs anymore. They just come into my dreams. I just wake up and there's a song. Ding! It takes me like 10 minutes to write a song now. It's none of it's my work anymore. It's just, I feel what we talk about the spirit world of like, whew, you get the support. So each one of you, your talent, whatever your passion is, your talent is, as long as you just steer that passion towards, I want to help God with this passion. But as soon as it becomes, no, I want to help me, and I know some unificationist musicians, And some of them, I can see them teetering. It's like, well, I need, to take my clothes off to get successful. You know what I mean? Or I need to change what I'm doing to appeal to that world, right? And get famous, get the numbers. But actually, God can't use that. God can't really use that. You have to be steered right on target towards building God's culture. And Jesus didn't come to build Christianity. He came to build Jesus culture, Jesus people. And so what you're doing, whatever it is you're doing, is toward that goal. You're totally united with Mother. You're totally united with God's heart. And, the truth is maybe not everyone will understand, but you got to pray about it. And you got to understand that feel that confirmation. You're owning it. Yeah. My wife challenges me sometimes. She'll be like, you're saying this, but Mother never said that. Are you sure you're on target? Are you sure you're really on target? And I pray about it, and I say, actually, yes, I know that I'm putting every minute of every day towards building a good culture for God. I know it in my heart of hearts. And you know what? Send me to hell. Send me to hell. If that's what it takes, go ahead and send me to hell. That's my attitude. Send me to hell. Huh? Yeah, I'll convert those people. Send me to jail. Send me to hell. That's my attitude. If God wants to send me to hell, but I know in my heart of hearts that I tried my best to build a heavenly culture, then I'm not going to regret it. That's how I look at it. You have to be very sure, that internal conviction, that to take what our parents passed us, heal the wounds of it, retract the accusatory energy, and just thank them. I had a real breakthrough with my parents. I'll share this one last thing. I went and I wanted to tell them my honest feelings. I wanted to tell them, and I prayed really hard for this. I told them, Mom and Dad, I felt so much pain in life because I really felt like you guys didn't handle money all that well, But I come to realize you really love the Lord. You really love God. And now that I'm doing this work, I can't thank you enough. It was a big moment for me. So that was enough for me to say, my parents are a victory. They did what they had to do. I'm going to take the baton forward. I'm owning it now. Watch out, world. It's coming. I'm coming. So cool. Any other ideas and thoughts on this topic?
I was just thinking about all of this. But for me, the overwhelming through all these different lineages and histories and actions is the line sometimes I know I forget sometimes is that God's presence. We're not just doing these things because they're things to do and they accomplish certain feats or certain conditions, but there's Heavenly Parent's heart involved, which is kind of, to me, connects to what you said. If you're really doing this and really trying to create these environments for the kingdom of heaven, that's where God is. God's like sitting back, he sees it all out to eternity. He just knows what you're going to do. But as soon as you take the one that leads the right way, it's right with you. And all these difficulties are not just difficulties these people had. They're difficulties that God had. That are memories for Heavenly Parent's heart. That's an inspiration to me. To know that there's nothing, alone is an oxymoron in our world. Especially with Heavenly Parent. There's never a time when Heavenly Parent's not there. Trying to work with whatever you're doing, and as soon as you pick that thing that increases the kingdom of heaven, especially now, the true parents have kind of filled the historical hole, and as Mother says, we're trying to build now on this culture, is that Heavenly Parent is right there. If you do the right thing, boom, the power, the energy, whatever is right there. Your intuitions, your strength in your music. And I think, for me anyways, I have to realize that no matter what I do, that's the way of it. God is not ignorant of anything anyone's doing. For goodness sake, and He's always there. And history has not been a very nice thing to Him. So I think I have to think about how do I make that better for me personally.
Any other insights? We could take a quick, maybe 15-minute break. Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you guys. I learned a lot from you guys today. Man.